So picture this. You've got this young nation, America. It's just won its political independence, which is great, but culturally, it's still basically listening to a mixtape from its old colonial parents. So how did America go from being a cultural copycat to finding its own unique voice? Well, that's what we're going to get into.
I mean, that's a huge question, right? It's not just about drawing lines on a map. It's about creating a national personality, a whole new way of looking at the world. And back in the early 19th century, America decided to take on that challenge head-on.
And look, this wasn't some tiny little tweak. This was a massive, seismic shift. It was a conscious choice to step away from that cool, logical, very reasonable Enlightenment thinking that had, founded the country. Instead, America decided to embrace something new, a culture that was all about passion, about the individual, and about this radical belief in human potential.
All right, Section 1, a culture in question. In those early days, if you looked at American art or philosophy or even the buildings, you're really just looking at Europe with a different address. It was an echo. And, for a new country trying to figure things out, just copying the big guys felt like the safe bet.
But then, something really changed. And this wasn't a slow, gradual drift. This was an active, deliberate decision to stop being a cultural copy. America's thinkers and artists started taking those old European ideas and pouring them through this brand new American filter. They were determined to find their own voice.
So, part 2, the Romantic shift. What was the spark that lit this whole cultural fire? Well, it was the embrace of this really powerful new philosophy that was sweeping the globe, and it just happened to be a perfect match for America's ambitious, go-getter spirit.
And that philosophy was Romanticism. It basically gave Americans permission to feel, to dream big, and to believe in their own unique destiny. It completely flipped the script from cold, hard reason to focusing on the individual's heart and the incredible beauty of the natural world.
Okay, Section 3, the American voice. So you've got this new romantic energy kind of swirling in the air, and the first place it really landed, where it found a home, was in the written word. It was time for America to start telling its own stories.
And believe it or not, one of the first shots fired in this cultural revolution was a dictionary. Seriously, Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary wasn't just a list of words. By changing spellings and creating a single American English, he was making a defiant statement. He was basically saying, this is our language now. We'll do it our way.
So, once the language was set, the storytellers showed up. You had guys like Washington Irving, who was creating American myths by mixing old European styles with local folklore. James Fenimore Cooper was writing these epic romantic tales about the frontier. And then you had Edgar Allan Poe, who went in a totally different direction, diving into the dark, psychological shadows of the human mind, which was a pretty big contrast to all the optimism of the time.
Now for Section 4, a new American vision. This new spirit wasn't just staying inside books. It literally changed how Americans saw their own country, transforming their vision with both art and some pretty revolutionary new ideas.
The Hudson River School was absolutely central to this. I mean, their paintings of these huge, majestic landscapes, they weren't just pretty pictures to hang on the wall. No way. They were a powerful expression of this deep, romantic love for nature, which they saw as a source of truth and a sign of America's special destiny.
And all this love for nature led to something that was 100% American, transcendentalism. This was a philosophy born right here that basically said you don't need old, stuffy institutions to find the truth. You can find it inside yourself and by connecting with the natural world.
The main voice behind this whole movement, the guy who really laid out all the core ideas, was the brilliant writer Ralph Waldo Emerson. He gave a whole generation of Americans a completely new way to think about who they were and their place in the universe. Emerson's essays, especially Self-Reliance, became essential reading. He was all about radical individualism, finding God in nature, and he had this unshakable belief that people were fundamentally good and could become perfect. He was telling people to trust their gut, trust their own intuition above everything else.
So if Emerson was the guy with the big ideas, his friend, Henry David Thoreau, was the guy who said, okay, let's see if this stuff actually works. He decided to take these transcendentalist ideals for a test drive in the real world.
And you probably know what he did. Thoreau famously went off to live in a simple cabin by Walden Pond. His whole goal was just to get rid of all the noise and distractions of society so he could figure out what life was really all about.
It's the perfect example of that individualistic spirit in action. So let's get into Section 5, the world remade. Because these weren't just abstract thoughts for poets. No, this new cultural energy spilled out everywhere, and it literally reshaped the nation's buildings, its society, and even its biggest political fights. I mean, just look at the architecture. Suddenly there's this big shift to styles inspired by ancient Greece and Rome, and that wasn't just about looking cool. It was a political statement. Buildings like the U.S. Capitol were designed to scream democracy, Republican virtue, and we're here to stay.
That belief in human perfection also led to some really radical social experiments. You had utopian communities popping up, like the Shakers, who were trying to achieve spiritual purity through strict order and celibacy. And then you had places like the Oneida community, who were chasing perfect equality through things like communal marriage. I mean, they were really pushing the boundaries of what society could look like.
And this passion absolutely fueled real-world social change. That romantic idea of individual liberty, it became a powerful weapon for abolitionists fighting slavery. A leading transcendentalist, Margaret Fuller, used it to make the case for gender equality. And this huge religious revival, the Second Great Awakening, was all about personal transformation, which just added more fuel to all these calls for reform. And hey, it wasn't just Americans who thought so. This smart French guy, Alexis de Tocqueville, came over and toured the country. And he wrote this famous book confirming it all. He could see that a truly unique American character, one shaped by liberty and equality, was actually being born. So when you look back, it's pretty amazing. In just a few decades, the entire cultural landscape was remade. From creating a new American English to publishing some of the first major works of feminism and abolitionism, this period was just an explosion of cultural creation.
And the legacy of this period is absolutely huge. It basically baked a fundamental tension into the American identity that, let's be honest, we're still dealing with today. This constant tug-of-war between our deep-seated desire for radical individual freedom and that dream of building a perfect, harmonious community.
The art, the books, the philosophies of this era, they really did build the cultural foundation of a nation. It really makes you stop and think, right? As we're trying to figure out our own complex world today, what are the big ideas that are shaping our culture, our identity, and the world that we are all building right now?